Alright, so Create.3.2 is finally here, and honestly, I can't believe how quickly it came because I just finally figured out how to use most things in 0.3.1, so this is extremely exciting. Now, if you have any questions after this showcase, please feel free to ask anything in the comments or go ahead and join my Discord, which you'll find the link to in the description. And one more thing I want to say is that this update is so huge that I'm probably not going to be able to cover all of the little bug fixes and usability improvements that the developers have put in, so I encourage you to go ahead and check the list which is linked in the description below. But I'm going to cover all the major things as well as my favorite little things, so let's go ahead and get started. Now before we jump in, please remember that Create.3.2 requires Flywheel to run, but I installed it using CurseForge and that installed it for me automatically. So if you're doing that, then you don't have to worry about it. And it also requires Forge 36.1.0 as the minimum version. Okay, so we're gonna start with the crafting blueprint, which is a really awesome new addition to Create Mod where you can place a little piece of paper on the wall and place any crafting recipe in it. So when you right click it, you see a very simple crafting grid, and there you can put your recipe, and now the item will be visible on the recipe on the wall like this, and it tells you how many of each item you need to craft this. So it actually makes crafting real easy for more complex items. Now I know most of us are using just enough items, but this is actually very cool, especially if it's something that you craft a lot. And I know for a fact that I looked up the mechanical press so many times in just enough items that I would have rather had this at the time. Now one more little cool thing about this is if you have 4 connected blocks like this, you're gonna get a huge crafting blueprint, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Now crafting this is extremely simple. All you're gonna need is a painting and a crafting table, and these are very easy to come by. So the painting is just a bunch of sticks and wool, and the crafting table is just a bunch of planks. So I highly recommend you get this and try it out because it is very cool. And now we're gonna look at the copper backtank, which is a really awesome addition, which is something that you wear and it holds air pressure. Now the reason it's connected here is because you need to connect it to a rotating source in order to load it with air. And that's how it works. And then when you wear it, it runs out of air, and then you eventually have to come back and connect it to a rotating source to reload it again. And whenever you right click it, it gets equipped right onto you. Now actually, let me get rid of this one and switch to survival mode. And while I'm doing that, I'll have you notice that this water wheel is sitting on its side. And this is another addition with this mod update. So you can have the water sitting on the side and the water wheel going like this, which will probably allow more designs for machines. Now let's go ahead and right click this guy to equip it, and as you'll see, it went ahead and got equipped right here. So what it does is basically it powers on equipment that we can use, and the first thing we're going to look at are these diving equipment. So once you put on the diving helmet, one thing you can do is just jump right into the water, and you'll see right next to the bubbles at the bottom there's a counter with 15 in-game minutes, which honestly is a huge amount of time for you to go diving and, you know, just going around the water. And if you look here, we'll see that this white gauge here is going to get lower and lower until eventually everything runs out. But throughout this time, the bubbles don't run out and we can do whatever we want. Now these boots right here, which you can equip just by right clicking, allow you to walk at the bottom of water surfaces. Now you can't swim, so remember, if you're wearing these, you can't actually swim back up. You have to take them off, but this will help you go down to the seafloor and explore it normally, jumping around with slightly lower gravity. I think this is 2 blocks that we're jumping, but other than that, everything is normal. And if you want to get out, you just take this off, and then now we can float all the way to the top. I really think this is amazing, and for survival, this is extremely invaluable. Now to craft the copper backtank, you're gonna need andesite alloy, a shaft, a block of copper, and copper ingots, which honestly, it is not super expensive. These are all early game items, so you're gonna be able to have this and enjoy it in no time. Now the diving helmet, which actually allows you to breathe underwater, only needs 5 copper ingots and a piece of glass. So honestly, you have no excuses. Just go ahead and make this today. And finally, the diving boots are just copper ingots and andesite alloys. It's very cheap and it's going to allow you to walk at the bottom of the sea. So honestly, I think that exploring some of the dungeons and places like that is going to be much more fun. And the next thing we're going to look at is the potato cannon, which is exactly what it sounds like. If you hold it, you can shoot potatoes, and as you can see, it's getting used up right now. But if I go ahead and put on the copper back tank, which we looked at earlier, then we're gonna start spending air pressure instead of wearing out the potato cannon. So you can actually hold this for a long time. Now also have you know that this thing does not destroy blocks, so it's only usable against mobs and people as far as I know. But this is really cool. I think it's about time we were able to shoot potatoes at people. So let's move on. The next thing we're going to look at is the linked controller, which in my opinion is honestly the coolest, craziest addition to this update in Create Mod. Now let's look real quick at what it takes to craft it, which honestly is nothing. It's just 6 buttons and a redstone link, so it is still in the same realm of redstone links. Now what this thing does is you can go to any redstone link that's set up in receive mode. You can right click it, and now you can select whether you want to have A, W, S, A, or D, or space, or caps lock, or it's actually caps lock for me, but it is the sneak button for anybody else to activate it. And it's basically a controller just like the one that looks on the right now. So if I hit W here, for example, now when I go away and I right click while holding this thing, if I hit W, that redstone link will always come on. Whenever I right click, I'm now stuck in the controller mode, so I have to right click again to get out of it. Now if we go and set up the blue guy here, and then the yellow, and then the purple, now I can go right click and I can choose which one to activate. Honestly, this is super cool. Now one thing to note is that if I go now and set it up, it's gonna reset. So you actually have to do everything one time in one go so that you don't actually have to come back and do everything all over again. So if we do these, we can use it and press all of these buttons, no problem at all. Now one cool thing about it is that you can actually place it on lecterns. So if you place a lectern here and put it, now you have a controller that's fixed, you can access it and use it exactly the same way. So I really think this is amazing. This is, I'm already thinking of creating some kind of Pong game, but I think there are so many different applications, crazy machines for trains and planes and all of that stuff, so I cannot wait to see what everyone does with this. Next, we're looking at 2 very interesting decoration blocks. Here's the peculiar bell, which if you place a soul fire under it, it's going to turn into the haunted bell on the side, which are very cool. Now whenever you ring the haunted bell, it's supposed to show you all the dark spots where mobs are going to appear. I don't know why it's doing this here during the day, but it's pretty cool, and I have no problem with it. Now this here is very interesting. A lot of us have processed quartz before, and we've had to do all these sorts of setups for it, but now deployers are going to stop conveyor belts whenever they have to process something on it, and they're going to process it, and then items are going to move. And here we have a bunch of polished rose quartz. So this is going to help us automate so many things. Now here's a little tiny one. There are sound effects that were added to a lot of things. Mixers, wrenches, mechanical presses, all sorts of things that interact with materials, and things that we do in Create Mod now have really cool sound effects. So I'll let you explore these, but this is my favorite, and this is the one I use the most, so this is all you're getting. And now things are going to get a little bit more complicated, because in this setup right here, I'm going to explain a couple of important things. We're going to start with the precision mechanism, and this is a new item that's replacing the integrated circuit in Create Mod. So this is going to go into the crafting recipes for a couple of important things, but most importantly are the extendo grips and the mechanical arms. So since these are extremely important, I figured I definitely have to cover how to create this thing. And the reason it's a bit complex is because it depends on something called the sequential assembly. Now this is something that a part of the Create Mod 0.3.2 update, it was added to just enough items so you can actually see what's happening here. You're gonna see that we need a golden sheet to be placed on the depot. This is the first step. It's happening before everything right here. Next, we're going to place a little cogwheel and it's going to get deployed on the depot. Next, we place a large cogwheel, then we place an iron nugget, and then we have to repeat this process 5 times. So let me actually get the materials. We're going to get 4 more of this, 4 more of this, and then we're going to get some nuggets. 4 more nuggets. Now, so this is kind of a lengthy process, but I'm guessing it's worth it because we actually end up crafting some very valuable things. Now you see, we do this and the deployer goes and doesn't do anything because I did not actually place the gold sheet. But that's the good thing, is I believe that we're good here as long as the items go in the right order. So let's see. It looks like we did it. And now if I pick this thing off the depot, you'll see that it's called an incomplete precision mechanism. So we just have to put it back and actually go and do everything. And now that the sheet is down there, you can hear the deployer doing its thing every time. So we can basically just toss these items in the hopper. I have not looked into automating this thing yet, but I'm pretty sure there are so many different ways to do that as soon as the need arises. So we'll eventually see how that works. But now that I did this 5 times, I should be able to pick it up, and now I have a completed precision mechanism. And like I said, if you look at certain things like mechanical arms, you'll see that this comes in just as a regular recipe item. So now that you know how to do it, you should be able to go ahead and do everything that you need. Now here's a nifty little addition to Nixie tubes, is now you can dye them by right-clicking them with a die, and you can pick them up with the wrench, which is pretty useful. The next thing is also an amazing addition because it's something I've suffered with a lot when I built my storage systems that depend on these cart assemblers. What we have now is an arrow on top of the assembler, and you can obviously switch that with a wrench if you want to change it. And this is the direction that the contraption will get assembled and disassembled. So it doesn't matter which direction the cart is coming from, this is not going to turn and face this way. So if you have a house or if you have a machine that depends on the orientation, you're not going to have it flip horizontally. So let me show you right now. We're gonna flick this on, and now this is the normal let's see where the arrow is pointing. The arrow is pointing that way, so the chest should always be pointing this way. Now if we send this right here, it's going to pick up the chest, and as you see, it turns off. It's going to come back. Now it doesn't matter which way it turns off, it's going to always face that way. I think this is pretty cool and extremely useful. And finally, here's a tiny thing where if you place a log on a saw, you're actually going to get 6 planks instead of 5. Only I can get it correctly. So first you're going to get the stripped logs, and then you place it again, and we're actually going to get 6 planks. So early on in the game, it is extremely worth it to get one of these and cut all of your wood and get all your planks with the mechanical saw. Now before we leave, there's one more extremely important feature to cover, which is the new in-game menu that you can see here when you click on the goggles on the left. There are a couple of very important things. First, there's the report issues links, which is going to give you the option to open this in a browser or copy to a clipboard. You're going to need a GitHub account, and then you can post any bugs that you see directly to the developers, and they are so awesome about dealing with them and fixing them so quickly. In fact, just today they released 0.3.2, and then a couple hours later they released 0.3.2a, which fixed a whole bunch of bugs. So make sure to report those bugs if you find them. There's also the Ponder Index, which is an extremely cool feature now. If you want to just jump in and learn about Create Mod, learn about the different pieces, you have a bunch of categories: kinetic sources, kinetic appliances, kinetic blocks, logic components. So whatever part you're interested in, you can click it, and then you're going to see a whole bunch of components in it, and then you can click each one of them and you get the amazing Ponder feature, which shows you how to use everything in a very graphical and cool way. So this is a really cool menu. Now I hit escape. You should hit the backspace to back out of the submenus instead of going back all the way. Now there's also the configure menu, which is much more important. there are 3 parts to it. There's the gameplay settings, which, it covers a whole bunch of different things like kinetics, logistics, recipes, so many different things that allow you to specify the little things about the mod. So you can turn off specific kinds of crafting, you can change all sorts of things about the gameplay mechanics, and I'll leave you to explore these things. And if you have any specific questions, of course, as I mentioned, feel free to comment down below or join the Discord, which will be linked in the description. Now, there's also world generation settings, so you can limit the items that you want to spawn. Maybe you don't want copper ore to spawn. Maybe you want very little or a lot of it to spawn. You can define the frequency and the maximum height and minimum height, so you can really change the game experience here and make it very different, especially if you're in an online server. These are just game changers. Now, finally, there are the client settings, which are also pretty big. They offer you a lot of different fine-tuning options for different things, and you can always save and discard your changes. So again, I recommend that you go and look at all of these settings and explore them, because for each person, they are going to offer so much improvement to the game. Now, I hope that this video wasn't too long or too boring. If you've enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.